Good morning, everyone. Myself, Ved Mongade, Assistant Professor, Department of ISC, Cyber Institute of Technology, Rajankote, Bangalore. Today, we're going to continue the second concept. It is on SQL. It is specifying constraint in SQL. Specifying constraint. Constraint, nothing but for attributes, we are going to add some of the constraints as we said in the last video, like key constraint, representativity constraint, domain constraint. These are some of the constraints we're going to add on the attributes. So first concept in that specifying attributes constraint and attribute defaults. So constraints like as I said in the primary key, we are going to add, we can make some attribute as a primary key. So primary key, it should not be a null. It should not be a null. So once we give an attribute as a primary key, once we specify any of the attributes as a primary key, in the table, if we want to see the description of the table, we can use the description. There we can see in front of that attribute, it is placed as a not null. In front of that attribute, it is specified as a not null. What it indicates, we have added that attribute as a constraint. What constraint? As a key constraint, nothing but a primary key constraint. So it is possible to define a default value for an attribute by appending the clause default. So wherever if you find the default attribute, for example, once I delete any of the value from the table, there if you want to place a default value, for example, department number 5, I want to remove the department number 5. After removing department number 5, I just write the default value as 4. So wherever we're going to delete that value from a particular attribute, there a default value should be replaced. That we set as a default. Here, example D number, int, not null. We have made D number as a primary key, at a data as integer. Now we're going checking. We have to check department number is greater than 0 and department number less than 21. Whatever the value we are trying to add to this attribute department number, the department number should be greater than 0 and it should be less than department 21. If you try to give the 0 and 21, that value will be not inserted to this attribute D number. This is how we are going to check the clause on the department, on the any of the attribute. So second, specifying key and representativity constraint. Specifying representativity constraint related to foreign key. So when we hit the foreign key error, whenever the value which is we have given in the primary key, if the same value if not given to the foreign key, then we will going to see the representativity constraint. So, and the primary key clause specifies one normal attribute that make up the primary key of the relation. If a primary key is a single attribute, the clause can follow the attribute identity, department number, integer, primary key. Representativity is specified via the foreign key clause, or a representativity constraint can be violated when tuples are inserted or deleted, or when a foreign key or a primary key attribute value is modified. So alternate action to be taken on the representativity constraint violated. How means by using the trigger action. So once we delete the value, for example, I have deleted the primary key value. So all other tables foreign key are referring to this primary key. So if we delete this one, it all other key which is in the table, it will affect. So, if once we delete that one, once we delete the primary key value, automatically the foreign key values will also get deleted. To perform this type of operations, we have some options called set null, cascade, set default. Set null what to do after deleting the value, they will just place the null wherever it is deleted. For example, I just delete the student ID 1. The student ID is acting as a primary key in the student table. For example, it is acting as a foreign key in the faculty table. So once I delete the value from the student table, automatically you should delete from the faculty table. After deleting, in that place, it should fill null if you use the set null. Cascade, it is going to delete the once we got deleted, then automatically the other field will also get deleted. So default value will be replaced once the values get deleted. So third one is giving names to the constraint. So why we have to give a name to the constraint? Yes, now I need the constraint to be act as a primary key. Later, I don't want that attribute to be act as a primary key. I want to remove that constraint. I want to take back that constraint of that attribute. So how to take back that constraint on that attribute means if we give the constraint name to that attribute, with the help of that constraint name, I can take back that constraint from that attribute. So how to do that? We can for that we can use the alter command. With the help of alter table command, we can add the constraint to the attribute to be act as a primary key or to be act as a foreign key. And later, if you don't want that attribute to be as a primary key, with the help of that constraint name, we can remove the constraint on the attribute. Example, alter table, table name, add constraint, constraint name, primary key, and this is the syntax. Syntax for adding the constraint to the table, the attribute. Alter table, table name. For example, I want to, next is alter table, table name, drop constraint, constraint. Once I added this one, if we want to remove the constraint, we can use this second command to drop the constraint on the attribute. Example, alter table, table name, add constraint, constraint name, foreign key, attribute, references, table, attribute. These are the three syntax. With the help of these three syntax, we are going to add the constraint name to the table. An example here, alter table, I will take student as the table name, alter table, student name, add constraint, constraint name. Constraint name we can give any constraint name we can do. For example, for time being, I'm giving ABC. Primary key attribute. For which attribute you want to make primary key? But student ID. So alter table, student, add constraint ABC, primary key, student ID. Later, if you want to remove the student ID as a primary key, so alter table student drop constraint ABC. If you use this one, this primary key will get the constraint which you added to this student ID will be get dropped. Next, specifying constraint on tuples using check command. So we're going to use this check clause to check some of the constraints of the tuple. How means check department create date greater than equal to manager start date. So how we going to assign the value to the table means the department creation should not be less than the manager start date, because once the department gets started, then only for the department manager will be assigned. So the department date creation date should be greater than the manager start date. To check, after checking this only, we are going to insert the values. If we try to give the value which is like that manager start date is the start date value is greater than the department created, so that value will be not insert. That value will be not taken in the database. This is how we are going to check. The last one is the schema change statement in SQL. So what is the schema change statements means? We're going to see this in the